What's up YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Evan Lewis and this is my 2021 Audi RS6 Avant. For those of you who are not familiar with this car, this is one of Audi's top-of-the-line models. This car combines the practicality of a station wagon with some unmatched performance. The 2021 Audi RS6 Avant is the first year that Audi has actually introduced this model into the United States. Previously, these cars were only available in Europe in the Avant and RS configuration. You guys will notice right off the bat that my car is actually a bit unusual with the way it looks and the way I have it stylized. This car is actually mimicking the Audi RS6 GTO concept car that Audi came out with, which was basically a wide-body version of the already wide RS6 and paid homage to some of the older Audi race cars. That's where the color scheme comes from and the white rally car style wheels. In regards to performance, this car is by no means a slouch. It has a 4-liter V8 twin-turbo engine making 591 horsepower. And for those of you who are not familiar with this power plant, this is actually the same engine and setup that's in the Lamborghini Urus and some of the higher-end Porsches as well. Of course, each of the models is tuned differently, but that's the gist of it. Being one of Audi's top-tier models, this car is packed with technology, from the laser headlights to the all-wheel steering system and the massive carbon ceramic brakes. Let's go ahead and take a look at the interior and see what we can find in there. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some of the pros and cons of the interior of this vehicle. As you would expect, you are immediately greeted by a beautiful display of screens. We have 2 screens here. The lower screen controls the air conditioning and climate control in the car, as well as some other miscellaneous features. And then we have the top screen, which is going to be your main infotainment screen. Let me go ahead and fire the car up so we can actually get a better look at this. So in front of me, the actual dash display is also a large screen. And I do actually like this a lot because there's so much customization that this car allows you to have with the screen. I typically have the live Google Maps display set up when I'm just cruising around. It's very helpful for reference, especially when I'm actually trying to make it to a destination. And then, of course, when you put it in the more aggressive driving modes, the screen changes and becomes more focused on your rev counter and your speed. Now that leads me into talking about driving modes, and also one of the annoyances that I have with Audi as a brand in general with their higher end cars. There are so many freaking modes. On the top display here, I am in the Audi Drive Select menu option, and you can see we have a comfort mode, an auto mode, and a dynamic mode. But then when you look over to the right here, we also have the RS Mode 1 and RS Mode 2. Now, I do like the convenience of the RS modes, and I'll explain what I mean in a minute. But what I'm saying about the over-complexity of things is you have these 3 driving modes. Not bad, right? But the thing is, you can actually put the car in dynamic, and then the car will automatically shift into sport mode for more aggressive shifting, as it should and makes sense. But then you can also drive in dynamic mode while not being in sport mode. And so you just have all these, you can also be in comfort mode and be in sport mode. And yes, it's helpful to be able to have comfort suspension and the sporty exhaust, but it's really unnecessary to have that many modes, in my personal opinion. And Audi has kind of bypassed this by creating what they call the RS mode, where you can actually customize 2 separate modes to your liking. Previously, when you wanted to launch one of the performance model Audis, you would have to be in dynamic mode, you would have to make sure your traction was off, you would have to make sure you're also in sport mode, and then you could launch the car. Audi has bypassed this issue by just linking up all of those modes to the RS buttons. So I have my 2 RS modes mapped up a little differently. My RS1 mode, which I'll click the RS button. The RS1 mode actually does nothing but open the exhaust valves. We still have the comfort suspension, we still have the regular shifting. It's not super aggressive, it doesn't crackle and pop, but it does have the exhaust valves opened for kind of a low, nice tone. But when you really want to go fast, all you have to do is click it again, and it'll put you in RS2 mode. And you'll actually notice right away that the idle of the car increases. And when you're driving, the shifts are a lot more aggressive. You'll get a lot of pops out of the exhaust. You'll see that it automatically turns the traction off, and the whole experience is more focused towards driving. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about something that bothers me about a lot of modern cars, this one included, and that is touchscreen. Yes, it looks great. It goes with the dash, it flows, it looks really nice, but it's so much easier when you have a button or a dial to change air conditioning controls, song volume, etc. down on the display down here. Now, we can adjust the volume of the audio with the steering wheel, but anyway, I'm mostly talking about air conditioning controls. The issue I have with touchscreens is you constantly have to look where your hand is being placed in order to properly operate the screen. And the Audi screen is pretty intuitive, but it still requires a attention to the screen while you're driving. Whereas when you have a dial, all you have to do is reach down, you never have to look, and you can just move the dial at whatever rate you want to move it at. Same thing with adjusting the fan speed and stuff down here, is you actually have to tap it multiple times or slide your finger up and down, and you really have to think about it. You don't have to think about it with a dial. Other than that, I have no real gripes about the interior of the car or any of the technical features. Of course, this has the 360 display for when you are parking the car, so we have the overhead top-down view. We can view a 3D model of the car, which is super cool and actually very helpful. You can also change to the front camera, so you make sure you're not going to hit a parking curb or anything like that. So very helpful there. And the last couple features I'm going to touch on, I actually do enjoy quite a bit. This car has a dynamic lighting system, so you can actually customize the colors of the lights inside of the car. We have line lighting, which is this Quattro badge here, as well as a lot of these trims around the dash and the doors. And then we also have a surface lighting, which is going to be kind of like an underglow that goes under the dash, under the doors, and you can actually change these to whatever colors you want, which you can change the entire mood of the interior of the car, which I enjoy immensely. The last thing I'm going to touch on are the speakers. Now, these are the mid-range Bang & Olufsen speakers for this car. There is a higher option, which is the 3D sound system, which adds a couple more speakers and creates a even more powerful audio experience. That being said, these are more than enough for the average person. Unless you're an audiophile, there's really no reason to upgrade. There's plenty of bass, plenty of tonality, and genuinely makes music very enjoyable to listen to. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the GoPro. I'm going to take this thing for a spin and tell you guys what it's like to drive. Alright guys, so now we're driving the car. We're out here at one of my favorite spots to do these videos because there's no one around and there are a lot of beautiful roads. So first things first, starting the car, you actually get a very dramatic start. It revs it up and makes a few burbles. It lets you know that it is in fact a Audi RS car. But once you set off, well, it's very quiet, very refined. As you would expect, it's a luxury car. If you drive this car around in comfort mode, well, you won't really realize that it's anything special. That's because it's extremely quiet, super smooth, and it drives like a normal Audi. I mean, it drives like an A6. But that's not what this car is about. This is a performance wagon, and you are going to be taking it and driving it in these more aggressive driving modes, and that's what we're going to do. One thing I'll mention that does annoy me, because this is an ownership review, that is when you start the car and you keep it in auto, it will always keep the auto start on unless you turn it off yourself, and that annoys me, especially in a big V8. It's really annoying to be pulling up to a light and having the car shut down and be dead quiet. So I, now instinctually just click that button and turn it off every single time I get into the car. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop it into RS2 because we're just gonna go straight to the most aggressive driving mode this car is designed for performance, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Click it once, click it twice, we're in RS2. And of course you will immediately notice that there's quite a bit more noise. We get some pops and burbles, and our gauge cluster changed to a more aggressive gauge cluster. You'll notice immediately that the suspension is much more firm, although still very smooth, and the shifts are much more aggressive. Now, I personally prefer to control the shifts myself. However, the Audi transmission does a fantastic job of doing all that for you. But I'm going to go ahead and pop it into manual mode so I have full control over the gearing and shifting of the car. One thing you'll be doing if you own this car, and I hope you do, is hitting the gas. And well, it's got some pickup. And just there was 85 miles an hour. It is incredibly fast, and of course that is one of the most iconic features of this car, is just being able to pull up at a light or pull up at a racetrack next to a Mustang and just blow it out of the water. It is unbelievably fast and definitely a sleeper. Now, apart from being fast, it is also incredibly agile for being a large SUV. And it accomplishes this with its all-wheel steering system, which means the rear wheels actually are on a separate axle and turn separately from the front wheels. This allows the car to actually dig into corners very quickly, and it's a very natural feeling. It's not scary. The car feels very controlled, and it's not too invasive where it feels like you're not in control of the vehicle. And when it comes to stopping, that's another thing this car shares with the Lamborghini Urus. Massive 18-inch brake rotors. So this thing stops on a dime for a massive car. That's actually the first time I've slammed on the brakes. Wow. Now, I want to talk about how this car actually applies the power. This car is twin turbo, so there is a little bit of turbo lag. When you hit the gas, it takes a minute for the car to build boost and pick up. And you actually feel that when you hit the gas. So instead of being slammed back into your seat, you're kind of gently pushed into the back of your seat and held there, because it's incredibly powerful, and will keep pulling up into the higher speeds that you might be going. So now that we're back in a normal drive, I can touch on the adaptive cruise control and the lane keeping feature. So essentially you have two stalks on the side here. One controls your lighting, your headlights, and your turn signals, and the other is cruise control. However, if you have the lane keep feature available in your car, there will be a tiny little button on the end of the stalk that controls your lights. So we'll click that, and you'll see a little icon come up on the dash with a car and two lines on the either side of it, saying that it is reading the road. Now, the issue with driving out where I'm driving right now is there are no lines on the road for the car to read. So it actually will not work out here, which is why I think the feature is a little antiquated, and after using it on the real road, it's not perfect, but it does allow you to relax a little bit while driving. The car does want you to keep your hand on the steering wheel, and will give you a notification if you leave your hand off the steering wheel for long enough. But you can kind of just nudge it a little bit, and it will go ahead and keep on keeping you in the lane by itself. Gas mileage. No, not great. It is a twin turbo V8. It's a massive engine, and it does drink fuel. It gets about 20-21 miles to the gallon on a good day on the highway when you're not getting on it and you're not in dynamic mode or anything like that. But around town, it does suck fuel down. Now, another thing that all Audis come with as a standard feature is height adjustable suspension. And you'll see a little option in the Audi Drive Select menu on the infotainment system. You can actually raise the suspension, and the standard height is a little lower, and it actually goes down after a certain speed. But the really cool thing is it actually does gain quite a bit of clearance and allows you to go on more rough terrain. Now, I understand that this car is obviously designed for the street, but one of the reasons I bought this car is because I plan to do a cross-country road trip in it. I'm actually planning to drive it from here in Florida to Alaska. And I thought, well, what better car than the RS6 Avant? It's got the performance, it's got a smooth ride, and it's got some clearance. To show you how actually capable it is, I'm gonna take it to a little side road over here and show you how much clearance the car actually has. Now, before I do this, I'll say that the car came with 22-inch wheels, which is a massive wheel, keeping in mind that the smallest wheel you can actually put on the car is a 21 because of the 18-inch brake rotors. But I actually modified it and put a slightly smaller 21-inch wheel with a little thicker tire, all-season Pirelli, that I plan to take across the country. And obviously that's going to be helpful for potholes, but also if I am in a situation where I need to do a little bit of off-roading, I'm not going to be stuck. All right, so I'm out my little off-road course over here. I'm going to go ahead and raise the suspension up, press a button. All right, here we go. So turning off the road here, onto the grass, and then onto the dirt. I'm just going over the first few bumps here. I can feel the suspension working hard, but honestly, the car just glides over it. No, I don't have all the clearance in the world, but the car just handles this so beautifully. It just glides right over some of these deeper bumps in the road. Now, on smoother, wider dirt roads, this car is actually so much fun to drive. It's extremely controllable in a slide because it's got that all-wheel steering to pull it out of the turn. And you can tell that Audi has stayed true to their rally heritage in this car. It's super capable. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and drive back on over here to the road. Well, the final thing I'm gonna touch on as an owner is, what do other people think of the car? Well, obviously, if you do your car up like this with white wheels and a crazy wrap, you're gonna get a lot of attention. And yes, I get stopped at almost every gas station asking about the car. Nobody knows what it is, but they're intrigued by it. That being said, the stock car without all the crazy wrap on it is a very low-key and understated car. If you're a car guy, you know what it is. If you're not, you probably don't. And you certainly don't know how capable this car is from the outside. It is a very sharp looking car. I love a lot of the little design features, the very aggressive front end, the sleek body lines on the side, and the very subtle wide body that's fitted to the RS models. So in conclusion, how do I like it as being my own car and my only car right now? Well, I bought this car for a purpose, and that was to take it across the country. And for that purpose, I can't think of a better car. But this does not replace a supercar, at least not for me. I love cars that are extremely raw, tactile, and give the driver a lot of feedback. And well, this isn't that. Yes, it does a superb job at everything it's designed to do, and I love it for that. And I am very excited to drive it for a very long time. All that being said, coming from a GT3 RS and now driving this thing is a little boring to drive. Perfect if you have a family, perfect if you plan to do a cross-country road trip, but perhaps a little lackluster if you're looking for something that is a absolute driver's car. Anyway guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative, and maybe this will influence your decision whether to buy this car or not. I don't know. If you guys want to follow me on my trip coming up in the next month or so, definitely hit subscribe and please like this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.